How's it going, everyone? It is Dark Ops here, bringing you another video. I posted a poll a couple of days ago asking what you guys wanted to see, and surprisingly most of you wanted to see me rank every Resident Evil game that uses the RE engine. So that's Resident Evil 7 from 2017, all the way to RE4 Remake, which came out about 2 years ago in 2023. Yeah, that seems a little bit weird, but the reason I'm doing it this way is so that I can't get anyone to get too mad at me if I don't rank the older games in a certain way. Because I never played a lot of the older games initially. I have played them now. I have gone back to play them now. But if I were to rank them now, I would ultimately just put them lower because I don't like certain aspects about the older games. So just to avoid that shit show entirely, I'm not going to be ranking them. Maybe I'll do one in the future once Resident Evil 9 releases and I make just one giant list. But with that all out of the way, let's get into ranking. We're going to start from worst to best, and keep in mind this is just my opinion. I'm going to be including everything about the game. So here we go with the worst RE engine game. I don't want to be too mean, but you guys knew this one was coming. It's Resident Evil 3 Remake. Was anybody expecting anything else other than RE3 Remake to be at the bottom? Now, yeah, there's only 5 or so games here, so it is a little bit awkward that I have this at the bottom and considering it bad. But in reality, it's not that bad. As a matter of fact, I've actually defended it more often than I've hated it. But let's stop beating around the bush. Out of all the remakes, out of all the games that have been on this engine, this is without a doubt the worst of the 5. It has the least to offer you, and ultimately does more to harm the actual game than help it. The original Resident Evil 3 with Nemesis, that was an iconic villain, and you took that and effectively stripped it of everything that made it intimidating, along with making easily some of the worst boss fights in the series. In my opinion, I think the Nemesis fights here are awful, genuinely terrible. And that's saying a whole lot, because I don't expect a whole lot for the bosses, but good Christ, the Nemesis fights in Resident Evil 3 Remake are bottom tier. Most of them I would probably have in D or F, just most of them alone because of how bad they are. And the crazy part is that that's all there really is to it. There's no side content, there's nothing else. Most of Raccoon City's pretty shut off for no real apparent reason. I don't want to pick at this game too hard, because I've played it a lot, and I've got a lot of nostalgia for it. It's the one I've beaten the most. I've had a lot of fun playing it. It's not necessarily a bad game. If I were to look at it without Resident Evil in just as its own thing, I would probably give it a very strong 7 or 8. It's very good on its own. But as a remake to Resident Evil 3, and coming off the heels of Resident Evil 2 from 2019, that game being such a significant upgrade, such a great remake, and then you get this, where it's so, not empty per se. I think the story is great, I think the characters are great, that's not the problem. But there's just not much really to do. I mean, you can memorize it in 1 or 2 playthroughs, and then get through the game in maybe an hour. It's really kind of disappointing how much they stripped away from this game, when they easily could have done more. Hell, give it some DLC. Out of all the Resident Evil games, this one deserved DLC the most. You easily could have put in way more DLC here, and people probably would have paid for it. Add more content to the game, add more value. There's just not enough here for me to justify putting it any higher. And I feel really bad because I do like this game a lot. I do love replaying it. I do think it has some of the most replay value in the series. But that's ultimately because most of the content from the original game doesn't exist here. It's gone or repurposed, and it's nowhere near as big. You don't get to explore nearly as much, which is disappointing because I feel like that's a lot of the charm of the series, is being able to explore the city or wherever it is you are. The charm is exploration, and when you take a lot of that there, you really don't have much to do. You just play through the game, you play through the story, and the story's great, the characters are good, but that kind of loses its charm after a while. You get what I'm saying? When you do it a couple of times, it loses its charm and ultimately gets held back to the bottom. So it's not a bad game, but it's a bad Resident Evil game. I'm sorry, but it has to be at the very bottom. Now, I know I'm going to lose a lot of people with this next one, but I have no other place that I can put this. That said, jumping from Resident Evil 3 to this next game, we're going to be jumping quite a few places, alright? So this does not mean I think it's the second worst game of all time. I just think it's the second worst on the RE engine. But that's not saying it's bad. That's saying it's very good. Alright, I gotta stop beating around the bush. Next up, we have the Resident Evil 2 remake from 2019. I know this game is fantastic, don't get me wrong. The only reason it's all the way down here is because I love the games above it just a smidge more. But that said, everything beyond this point, everything at this point and above, is like a solid 8, 9, or 10. Okay, it's all fantastic. So with that being said, why do I have it below the other games? Why is it in my opinion, the second worst on the RE engine? Well, really, it comes down to a few nagging little things here and there. Not to say that it drags the experience down, but there's a few things here I think could have been a bit better to stick the landing, to really make more of an impression on me than what we got. So first, I actually want to talk about the playthroughs, because I went through all 4 playthroughs, and to be honest with you, I feel like the second playthroughs kind of were underwhelming in a way. The reason I feel this way is even though you do get an exclusive boss fight ending, the true ending, you do get all that amazing stuff, but it does feel awkward when you're replaying sections that you should have already beaten as the other character, and it feels very inconsistent when they're trying to do 2 stories. One of them might be it's very confusing on what they're trying to do, and I feel like they could have handled it a lot better, because there are some puzzles that I just feel like you could have already had solved and save us all this time and a hassle. For example, the 3 lion medals in the second playthrough, you should at least already be able to get some of them, but for some reason you can't, even though Claire or Leon was already there. And then you have these notes that they left, which means that they've already passed through, but clearly they didn't, because you have to redo the whole thing all over again, and you have to fight the same boss over and over again, regardless of which playthrough you do. So it does feel a little inconsistent, a little annoying trying to replay the game with that in mind. And also I feel some sections drag on just a tad too long, I feel. Like the clock tower section, which should have been in Resident Evil 3, by the way. I don't know why it wasn't. The clock tower section, I think, on the second playthrough, really drags, in my opinion. I feel like it's a little annoying at times, having to do all that, and then one of the gears is actually near the beginning. So you've got to go traverse all the way back down, grab that, and then go all the way around the police station. To me, things like that kind of get annoying. I'm not a huge fan of puzzles, so this game's puzzles kind of annoy me quite a bit. Not in general. I think on the first 2 playthroughs, as Claire and Leon, I think they're really good. But trying to do them on second playthrough especially just feels a little redundant, and I really wish they could have spiced it up just a little more, do something different, instead of having you redo it, even though they should have already had it done. And apparently, they should have had it done, because, Marvin is dead in the second playthrough, which means that somebody already saw him turn. So, it's just a little inconsistent, I know, and maybe it's a minor thing, but it's just annoying to me. I feel I really don't like the police section being that long. Don't get me wrong, it's a great section. It's spooky. It's very spooky. It scares the shit out of me. And the jail section, it's fucking creepy. In terms of atmosphere, this is probably one of the best, if not the best Resident Evil game, if you really want to get scared. I hope Resident Evil 9 actually goes back to these kind of roots. Really, really scary. And of course the gore and the graphics are phenomenal. They look absolutely beautiful. I can't even believe it was on last-gen consoles. It's such a gorgeous looking game. I love this game. Don't get it wrong. Compared to RE3, hell, it's still one of my top Resident Evil games. So it's not the second worst bottom. It's just, if I had to compare it to all the other RE engine games, I think it's the second worst. But that's not to say that it's bad at all. It's very, very good. Just really nagging things here and there, I think, drag it down from being like a 10 out of 10. Which the games above it get close to, and some of them might even reach that level. But that said, just a little nagging things here and there. The story is great. The characters, I feel Leon and Claire were great. I know some people don't really like how they did with Claire and what they did with Leon, but personally I loved it. So maybe I'm the minority on this one. Maybe you shouldn't even been here in my opinions. But I think they did a really good job. And I think it's a great remake. Absolutely worth the value. And it even has extra DLC, which again, RE3 should have had. I don't know why they put it here and not in RE3. It absolutely should have had that. But regardless, great game. Just because it's the second worst doesn't mean it's bad. It's very awesome, great, absolutely worth playing. Next up, roughly the middle of the pack, we have Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. This game really brought me into horror. I remember when this first came out in 2017, I still got horrified just thinking of playing this game. And finally, a few years later, I picked it up, played it through the full thing, and I've gone through a couple of playthroughs. I love this game. This is probably one of my favorite horror games just in general. The fact that it goes from third person to first person for the first time ever, and the new story, the new characters, the atmosphere, just, it does so much different than previous games, and yet it still accomplishes what it set out to do, revive the series, and it does it so well. Like, it's so close to a perfect game, and yet it does drag just a tad bit in certain areas. But that's not to say it's very bad. It is one of my favorite horror games, like I said. I love this game, and this definitely revived the franchise. I don't want to hear anything about RE6 or Umbrella Corps. No, this game shits on both of them. I would argue it shits on Resident Evil 5. That's just my opinion. Resident Evil 7 is a fantastic game. Absolutely fantastic. Going first person, I think, was a great call. And I'll be playing as first person for Resident Evil 9 just to get that creepy factor. Because you can't beat it with third person. You cannot. Being creepy in first person is far, far scarier than third person, in my personal opinion. But it's still such a great change for what this game is setting out to do. And you can also consider it sort of a reboot, as at this point the Resident Evil name was kind of dead. So as a reboot, as a new game, as a sequel, it absolutely succeeds on all fronts. And even the new protagonist I really like. I already made a video defending Ethan. He's a really cool protagonist, and I love the lore surrounding the characters here as well. It's just so interesting and immersive, and it has VR on top of that. That makes it even more immersive. It's just all around a fantastic game. And on top of that, the DLCs, not only do they explore more of the lore and tie in other characters like Chris, but it just makes it more fun, more replayable. I myself have played more of the 21 card game than I've played most other AAA games. That's how addictive it is, and that's how replayable Resident Evil 7 is. So I highly, highly recommend this game, and really the only reason it's here and not anywhere higher is because at this point most of the games are going to be equally amazing or top of the pack. Okay, this game is absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. I have no other ways to describe it. I love it. And if you haven't tried it yet, or if you're still stubborn about third person, give it a try. I absolutely think Biohazard is one of the best in the series, and it's really good. It's just a fantastic game. Absolutely love it to pieces, and it's probably the third best. Probably the third best on the RE engine, and in general, just a absolute fantastic game. Alright, so we have the second highest here, and again, this might be a very controversial depending on who you ask, but we have Resident Evil 4 Remake. This game is some of the best gaming experiences I have had in a very long time, and the only reason it's not number one is because it is as equally good to me as what's in number one, which I'm sure you've already figured out by now. But let's talk about this game. Resident Evil 4 Remake is a borderline masterpiece. It completely redoes what the original did, but somehow even better, with great storytelling, gameplay, the Mercenaries bonus mode. There's so much content here. You could put Resident Evil 2 and 3 together and you still wouldn't match this. This game is everything that I thought Resident Evil 3 and 2 Remake should have been. It is all around just fantastic. The characters are some of the best in the series, so memorable. The action sequences are great. It's still creepy from time to time, although albeit not scary. And that's admittedly what I'm kind of missing about these games, is that it's not quite as horror-like as I would have liked. But regardless, it makes up for it in the phenomenal action, gameplay, storytelling, and characters. It does everything it set out to do to the highest degree. Out of all the remakes, including Zero, this is the best one by far in my opinion, and absolutely deserves its praise. It's missing practically nothing, I feel, and it's got more than enough for your money. It took me over 12 hours to complete on my first playthrough, and even on my second and third playthrough, it still took me roughly 10-ish hours to complete. This game is a long one, and even with speedrunners, it still takes quite a while to actually get to that point. And not to mention the difficulty, which admittedly can sometimes be a negative, I feel. It does feel sometimes like bullshit when you get stuck in certain sections. There are just some parts here and there that kind of nag, but nowhere enough to drag a point for me, I feel. I definitely think that if you're thinking about getting a remake, this is the best of the three by a landslide. I love the characters. Leon and Ashley work so well together. It's hard to describe how I feel about them, because I really like the two together, and I also like Ada. Not as much as most people. I do find her a bit annoying, but I do like her here. Although, now that I'm mentioning it, I should also add in that the voice acting for Ada is not great. I definitely think that's something RE2 did better, so I'll just add that in post-editing. The voice acting for Ada is not very good in this game. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it was quite nearly as good as Ada from RE2. I know they switched actresses or something like that. So that was pretty noticeable to me when I was playing through the DLC. It was kind of noticeable. I don't like when games do this. It's very inconsistent. So hopefully they'll fix something about that. Or maybe it was just a recording issue. But regardless, minor issue, minor nitpick. still a absolute phenomenal game. Absolutely worth the purchase price. One of my favorite games of all time. Not just as a horror or an action, but just in general. It's absolutely fits the bill of a Resident Evil game. And for Phil's to remake Fantasy, honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if this was nominated for Game of the Year 2023. Yeah, it's a remake. I know people feel a little bit weird about that, but I honestly, I could see it. I could see a nomination. I think it absolutely deserves getting credit where credit is due. And if you've somehow not played this yet, absolutely go buy it. It's absolutely worth your money. And maybe pick up the DLC as well. I think the DLC is worth playing on its own, albeit the difficulty spikes can be a little bit off from time to time. But regardless, great game, absolutely worth picking up, and my second favorite on the RE engine. Now, I know this is definitely controversial because I have seen some hatred for this one. Coming in at my number one for top Resident Evil game on the RE engine, we have Resident Evil Village, and I'm going to defend this game to high heaven. So if you don't like this game, if you don't like the first person perspectives, click off the video. I'm going to be defending this game entirely because I love Resident Evil Village, and so should you. This is without a doubt one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Resident Evil game of all time. I love the story, I love the graphics, I love the perspective, I love the gameplay. There's nothing about this game at all that I hate. I have nitpicks here and there, of course, with any game, but this has the least, in my opinion, of all the Resident Evil games in terms of nitpicks. I love the story here. The characters, Ethan, Rose, Mia, I really like here. Chris, I love his inclusion to the story, albeit I do think, his writing is a little bit, not weird. I just think that the marketing is a little misleading. I think they wanted to do something else with him, and they decided to go a different direction, so a lot of people are kind of confused why he's such an asshole for a lot of the game. And I can see that. But I think it comes together really well. I think once you play to the end of the story, and you see Chris, and you know how he feels about the whole situation, once you play through the end of the story, I think you'll really understand why he did what he did, why he acted the way he did. Although, definitely for sure, I think the dialogue could have been significantly different, and he could have fixed a lot of the issues people had. But regardless of those issues, right, which I can still see past, because I think the story itself is fan-freaking-tastic, and the ending, man, the ending got me teared up. Games, very few games can actually do that for me. So when it actually does, and that I care that much about the main character, and Rose, and Mia, the Winters family, and the Winters storyline coming to an end in this game, that means you've done a phenomenal job. And I think that Resident Evil Village does a phenomenal job in every regard. And on top of that, you still have the Rose DLC, and you still have the Mercenaries bonus mode. You still have extra content packed in as well, despite the fact that this is a huge open game. It's not too long. You can complete it in roughly 5 to 6 hours, so it's not crazy long. And I do wish certain sections do last a bit longer, like in the castle. I do wish the castle section was a little bit longer. But you know what? I think that's okay. I think that's okay because the action is phenomenal, the gameplay is great, and it encourages replayability. Really, I think this harkens a lot back to the older style games like RE4 Remake and, those kind of style games where you kind of want to replay despite its gigantic size. So I really do give credit to this game for revitalizing Resident Evil for me. Even though RE7 already did that, I think Village does it even better. And I think Village is easily one of my favorite Resident Evil games. And definitely up there for sure. I think it does just everything so freaking well. And the only hatred I see for this game is either in the story with Chris or with Ethan not being a great protagonist, which, again, I already heavily disagreed about and made a whole video on defending him. So you know how I feel about him. I think he's a fantastic protagonist, and the sacrifices he makes, and his interaction with the villains, and, just everything. Like, everything about him, I think he's great, and it just works in service of the story. And, of course, that ending, and the extra DLC with his daughter, the new gameplay, and the extra story added on top of that. And, of course, the fact that you can play third person after you beat that as well. That's just a cherry on top of the cake. I love it. Such a love letter, in my opinion, and I can't wait for Requiem to come out to hopefully see some more people play first person in the first playthrough so they can get that same experience. Because I feel like this whole trilogy should have just been first person only. But if you're going to have third person, making it optional, that's fine by me. I'm going to be playing first person, and I think it just does the whole game service. And not to mention that in first person, the game looks absolutely beautiful. These are some of the best looking graphics I've ever seen in a horror game, if not the best. It looks so beautiful. The use of ray tracing, playing on PS5, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely one of my favorites, and everybody should go play it. I absolutely think it's worth it, and if it's on sale, you should go pick it up right now. You will not regret it. So with that all being said, I know this was a bit of a longer video. I didn't think I was going to talk that much about certain games, but what did you think of my rankings? Did you think some should have been higher or lower than others? And if so, how would you have your list? Because personally, me, everything beyond Resident Evil 3 is still high. You know, if I had to put it by number, I would have Resident Evil 3 around 6 out of 10, and then everything above it at 8 or above. So there is a massive jump there, so I don't want people to get the idea that just because I put something like RE2 or 7 at the bottom doesn't mean that I don't like them. That's not the case at all. I love them. It's just that when you only have a few games on this engine, I did have to work around it a little bit. If you do want to see me do every single game in the series, let me know in the comments below. I'll try to play all of them so I can get an actual concrete opinion. Because while I have played them, I don't really like how they've aged. So that's why I'm kind of waiting for them to all be remade so I can play them properly. But until then, I'll make an updated list with Requiem once that releases in February and I get the chance to play it. Go through a couple of playthroughs, see how that game is. And hopefully soon we'll see a Code Veronica remake because I really want to see that one remade. And that's one of my favorites, if you guys would know. Remaking Code Veronica, I've been championing for a while, so hopefully that gets done. But that's just me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please slap that like button and subscribe. I could always use a new addition to the Dark Ops army. And let me know what your list is below. Let me know if you disagreed or agreed. I would really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for watching. This is Dark Ops. I'll see you guys in the next one.